If you're a CEO of a company, the chore level is high. And if you don't do your chores, then the company goes to hell. The wealthier you are, the fewer kids you have. The more educated you are, the fewer kids you have. I think we might enter a recession in approximately spring of 2022. But I think we probably are in a recession, and that recession will get worse. And if there are more dollars created than the increase in the goods and services output of the economy, then you have inflation. The true economy is the output of goods and services. It's not money. It's literally, what is the output of goods and services? If they in fact have been vociferously claiming less than 5% of fake or spam accounts, but in fact it is 4 or 5 times that number, or perhaps 10 times that number, this is a big deal. It's not this. It's sort of like if you said, okay, I agree to buy your house. You say the house has less than 5% termites. That's an acceptable number. But if it turns out it is 90% termites, that's not okay. You know, it's not the same house. This house is made mostly of termites. Termites leave. Literally, your house will disappear because it's mostly made of termites. So that would obviously just not be appropriate. So in making the Twitter offer, I was obviously reliant upon the truth and accuracy of their public filings. And if those filings are not accurate, it's simply not. It's not. You can't pay the same price for something that is much worse than they claimed. Twitter's revenue is primarily dependent, I think 70% or some of that order, on brand advertising as opposed to specific purchase advertising. This is a big deal because brand advertising there's not a purchase that results from that. So it's basically, how much mind share, or like basically if you're a big company, how often do they hear your name? It's as opposed to something where you can directly measure the outcome. So that means that they're somewhat going on faith. And if that faith is undermined or reduced because of the reality of the situation coming to the fore, then Twitter's revenue will be significantly impaired. And that's a major problem. So we started with really just nothing, and the T0 prototype from AC Propulsion. That's the precursor to Tesla. To be 100% clear, once again, when we created Tesla, when I joined, there were no employees, there was no intellectual property, there was no prototype, there was nothing.
Yeah.
The only way that Tesla actually made it through 2008 was a subset of the existing investors, which includes people like Antonio Gracias and Steve Jobson and a few other key people, Aaron Price, who I hold a debt of gratitude to this day. And I put in all the money I had left, and they said everything, literally everything. I didn't even have a house, so this is my ex-wife had the house. So I was staying actually in Jeff Skull's spare bedroom. The subset of the investors would say, okay, if they're putting as much as I put in, so I put in everything. If you're a CEO of a company, the chore level is high. And if you don't do your chores, then the company goes to hell. And I hate doing chores, frankly. So that's the real, there's a whole bunch of sort of, personnel issues and legal issues and things that I don't find enjoyable to work on. But if I don't work on them, the company suffers. So it's more like just the sheer volume of work is insane. That's and then I go do go add to it with Twitter or something like that. I mean, I have a habit of biting off more than I can chew, and then just sitting there with chipmunk cheeks. Well, currently we're not, because of just generally low birth rates almost worldwide. Civilization is not headed to have a population that is an order of magnitude greater than where we're currently. We're currently headed towards a population decline, and this is almost everywhere in the world. So it basically seems as though as soon as you have urbanization and education beyond a certain level and income beyond a certain level, birth rates plummet. And so as countries get wealthier, their birth rates plummet. It's somewhat counterintuitive because people will say like, well, it's too expensive to have a baby. Nope, the wealthier you are, the fewer kids you have. The more educated you are, the fewer kids you have. So it's the inverse. So I'm not sure who would use all that energy unless there's a significant change in the birth rate. Or we have a very robot-oriented economy. So that's also possible. So if we've got a lot of, four-wheeled robots in form of cars and androids, so humanoid robots, then you could certainly see that there'd be perhaps a need for an order of magnitude more energy. Well, predicting macroeconomics is always difficult, and one should assign probabilities to these things. But ironically, I did last year. People asked me what I think about the economy. I said, well, I think we might enter a recession in approximately spring of 2022.
Called it.
So, now the thing is that recessions are not necessarily a bad thing. I've now been through a few of them, and what tends to happen is if you have a boom that goes on for too long, you get misallocation of capital. It starts raining money on fools, basically. It's like any dumb thing gets money, and I'm sure you've seen a few of those. So at some point it gets just out of control, and you just have a misallocation of human capital, where people are doing things that are silly and not useful to their fellow human beings. And then those companies, there needs to be sort of an economic enema, if you will, to have everyone sort of shift uncomfortably in their seats. Eventually the economic enema does its job. It clears out the pipes, if you will.
Yes.
And sort of the bullshit companies go bankrupt, and the ones that are doing useful products are prosperous. But there's certainly a lesson here that if one is making useful product and has a company that makes sense, make sure you're not running things too close to the edge from a capital standpoint, that you've got some capital reserves to last through irrational times. Because in the past, when there's been a recession, it has gone. It's amazing. It's flipped like a light switch. PayPal almost went bankrupt in 2000. We came close. But thankfully, we'd raised that $100 million in March 2000, without which we'd be in game over, basically. And we kind of saw it coming. So it's like we got the X-Confinity merger done in like 3 weeks and raised $100 million because we were like, we see this coming to an end pretty soon. And then a month later, it was like, a nightmare, basically. Anyway, so it's just important to make sure if you're a healthy company, you got some capital to get through things. And then what's your costs? And if it is a recession, which more likely than not it is a recession. I'm not saying it is, but it probably is. Then just watch your cash flow and get to positive cash flow as soon as you can. But I think we probably are in a recession, and that recession will get worse. But these things pass, and then there will be boom times again. So it'll probably be some tough going for, I don't know, a year, maybe 12 to 18 months is usually the amount of time that it takes for a correction to happen. I mean, the obvious reason for inflation is that the government printed a zillion amount of more money than it had, obviously. So it's like the government can't just, have issue checks far in excess of revenue without there being inflation. Velocity of money held constant. So unless there's something would change with velocity of money, but it's just if the federal government writes checks, they never bounce. So that is effectively creation of more dollars. And if there are more dollars created, then the increase in the goods and services output of the economy, then you have inflation. Again, velocity of money held constant. This is very basic. This is not like super complicated. And if the government could just issue massive amounts of money and have and deficits didn't matter, then why don't we just make the deficit 100 times bigger? Okay, the answer is you can't, because it will basically turn the dollar into something that is worthless. So, and various countries have tried this experiment multiple times. It's not like, oh, I wonder what happens if this is done. Have you seen Venezuela? Like the poor people of Venezuela are, have been just run roughshod by their government, and so obviously you can't simply create money. The true economy is the output of goods and services. It's not money. It's literally what is the output of goods and services. Money is simply a way for us to, or anything that you call money, is a way for us to conveniently exchange goods and services without having to engage in barter, and also to shift obligations in time. Those are the two reasons that you have money. This thing called money. It's really it's a database. Money is an information system for labor allocation and for exchange of goods and services and for translating in time. And the quality of that information is a function of it's like you can apply information theory to money, and I think it helps explain why one money system is, or why one action is better than another.